Hello, I'm going to be going over a quick demonstration on how to use the Plotly package in Python. If you look at the link at the very top of the notebook, it will bring you to the website showing the documentation for the Python library, and it just gives some great examples and shows all the capabilities that this library has to offer for creating data visualizations. And all this code can be found in the GitHub repository linked at the top of the page as well. And if you go to the README page, you can see a link to the data source that I got from Kaggle here. So just jumping right in, we'll bring the data in and look at it. So basically this data set is 1,000 rows showing the household energy bill for that month, and then 9 different characteristics of that house. And you can see all the data types are numeric, which is great for statistical analysis. And there are 1,000 rows and 10 columns. It's worth noting that there are no null values contained within this data set, so this is a great data set to use if you wanted to practice using the Plotly library. So as I showed on the website, you can go look at all of the different capabilities, but basically any sort of visualization that you want to create, Plotly allows for that capability. And it relies heavily on what we talked about in class with Altair and the grammar of graphics. Basically just meaning it uses a consistent way of creating and modifying these graphs. And it's very similar to a Python dictionary or a JSON object. Plotly was built using JavaScript, so the way that the figures are made is very similar to JSON objects, which if you're familiar with Python, you know is similar to the way that Python dictionaries are created and used. So that's good to know when first getting into it. So I'll just start here, show the data again, and then the first one I'll make will be just a simple scatter plot. So assign it to this trace1 variable, and you can show multiple objects on top of each other, and each object is commonly referred to as a trace. So this trace1 will be a scatter plot, and I'll be showing the house area on the x-axis and the amount paid on the y-axis. And then you see I'll make it this mode is defining the type of graph that you want to make. So markers is a scatter plot. We'll give it a name, and for each marker or for each parameter within this graph object, you can give it its own dictionary, which allows you to customize down to a very low level each characteristic of a figure or a graph. And then you can even see that you can put a dictionary within one of these dictionaries. So this is just this marker, we'll call it red, we'll give it a size of 10 pixels. And then the outline of that marker will give it its own dictionary, and that outline will be a width of 2 pixels, and it will be black. And then this text parameter, just whenever you hover over a figure, it tells it what values to display. And so whenever you want to visualize a trace, it needs to be passed in as a list. So even if you only have one trace, it's good to go ahead and just put it in a list to avoid any errors. And then we'll use this graph object.figure constructor and pass in the list of traces as the argument for the data parameter, and then just run this fig variable to show the graph. I accidentally deleted it. So here, just a simple scatter plot with, it's not very intuitive because we didn't add many characteristics. But you can see if you add a layout variable, you can further update and specify and add some customization to this object. which is great for easily altering only just one or two things that you might want to show different, instead of going back and having to redo the entire graph object figure itself. So here we want to add a title, and then give a title to the x-axis and y-axis as well, and further specify some of those characteristics. And then we'll add that layout variable in when we create a new graph object figure. And you can see that this figure has been updated to include those changes, with the title here and on the y-axis and the x-axis as well. And if we want to update some of these, notice that you don't have to assign it to a new variable. These changes are permanent, so if you can call this and then alter whatever you would like to within this existing figure variable. So we'll basically invert these colors, we'll fill it with black and then outline it with red. So you can see here that the changes have been made, and so it's just this just is a basic example of how easy it is to modify figures, which is not so easy in some of the other visualization packages. So that's why Ploty is so great, especially when working with very complex data. You can make very small changes at a time, which is nice. So I'll be showing how to create a bar chart here. Just create a new data frame with only the columns that we want to use. And then we'll be using pandas here to create some aggregations. And then we will show each of these as a series. And then we'll create a new trace. Here we're using the Plotly Express package. Very similar to Plotly, it's just a bit shorter syntax and quicker to create. Not as much maybe customization, but easier for just simple graphs that we want to create, like this one. So here you can see the number of rooms and then the energy bill for each number of rooms, the total amount of energy bills. So basically this just is showing a normal distribution right here, and that's just how you create a simple bar chart. We'll do the same with a line chart here, and we'll show the number of rooms and the average energy bill for each of the number of rooms as opposed to the total number of rooms. So again, just easy to show data real quick in a bunch of different ways without having to make too many changes. You can basically copy and paste this right here, make just a couple different changes, and you have a whole new graph showing something completely different. Another great thing is the bubble charts capability. So we'll make a new data frame, and then this is also a scatter chart, but we will add this size parameter, so each marker will be different depending on the amount paid for that month. So you can see here, this is just showing a couple different things at once. You get the legend here on the right, and then the x-axis is showing the number of people that live in that house. And then as you get higher up on the amount paid, the marker gets bigger, so it's just adding another layer of visualization to your data, which can be useful at times. So Plotly also allows you to show some pretty descriptive statistical charts. Here I'll start off by showing a box plot, and we'll be adding two traces to this box plot. And so on the left here, we're seeing the distribution of the number of people. On the right, the distribution of the number of rooms. And you could do this for every column in the data if you wanted to, and it's very intuitive and allows you to show multiple things in a nice compact way, which again is great for doing some statistical analysis. And here we'll be showing a histogram. So along with this histogram here, we can also add in some more statistical charts. And right here, we're doing that by adding an argument, this violin argument, to the marginal parameter. So this is a violin box plot up here. It's just another way of showing the distribution of data for each of these features shown within our chart. And we can do the exact same thing. Sorry, we can do the same thing, but here we're doing a traditional box plot, and here we can do what's called a rug, and it's just giving a little tick for each instance. So instead of showing like one figure, you just kind of see the density of the population that shows the distribution. So again, just great for showing multiple things at once in a nice compact way that makes sense. There are some higher level charts that Ploty allows you to make for scientific data. I attempted to make a couple. This first one here is a density heat map showing x-axis and y-axis distributions. So here's the amount paid and the average monthly income. So you can see right in the middle, since this is a normal distribution on the x-axis as well as the y-axis, it makes sense that this center has a higher count, and as you move away from the center, the shading gets a little bit darker, indicating that the distribution is a little bit less in that area. So another great way to show that would be a polar bar chart, which I made here. So this is kind of showing the same thing, and you can do some calculations within the graph object when you're making the figure itself. So here I multiplied for the theta, which is basically the rotation for each different category. I multiplied it by 51, and I just did that because 360 over the different number of rooms that are found within this data set to make it equal a whole 360-degree turn, multiplied by 51. So that's just some of the things that Ploty allows you to do by creating aggregations and doing calculations within the figure itself. So that was just a couple of charts that you are able to make in Ploty. Again, there's a very wide range of capabilities that Ploty has to offer, such as AI and machine learning visualizations, charts specific to finance, such as candlestick charts, time series, things of that nature. And as I previously mentioned, geographical data. There are some great mapping capabilities as well as 3D maps. These I did not get into because they're a bit more complex, but I hope you were able to get a good understanding of some of the basic capabilities that Ploty has to offer. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.